Hey there, welcome to the Awe Shift podcast. I'm back again with a guest. His name is Leon Logothetis. And so Leon is an individual. That's kind of a cool story. He's actually got some cool shows that are now on Netflix. He's been on a bunch of different TV stations, all the things you can imagine that you would put next to a person's name, Tamron Hall, all the cool things. Here's why. The guy decided to go through this journey where he said, you know what? I'm not happy with my life. I want to change some things. And he literally trusted human kindness and went out on a trek around the world, literally at one point around the world. He's had these crazy cool experiences. And what he found was a lot of things that we need as humans is just go be brave. So he wrote a book called Go Be Brave. And we uncover a lot of his personal story, his concepts around how you can find ways to eliminate anxiety, to really push forward, to get past fear, and to find a sense of we'll call it freedom to express without causing problems when you have anger, and how anger is in fact a good thing. So what I want you to do is tune into this with an open heart and open mind and actually learn something that can change your life. That's it. Let's get into the show. Hey, welcome. You obviously know who this person is. I just kind of told you. We're now we'll call it cordially introduce them to the show. Leon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. How about you?
I'm doing great, man. I've had a good day so far. It's been a little fast paced for me. I had a crazy last weekend that ran into this week, but I'm actually in a good, peaceful place right now. So no complaints. Where are you at in the world physically?
Los Angeles.
Oh, you're just south of me. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, so I'm not too far.
Oh,
I was
okay.
actually just this last weekend. I was down in Walnut, California. My son runs college track for the University of Oregon, and my wife runs college track as well. But she runs for a junior college nearby here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and they were in the same track meet last week, which is pretty cool. So like
Oh, wow.
a weird full circle. So I was in your neck of the woods, but then I was back up home for a whole bunch of stuff. Anyways, let's dive in. I always start the conversation with one question. You could answer it however you choose, and then from there it opens up the rest of the conversation. So here's the question. I'm walking around Los Angeles. I sit down next to this guy with a really cool hat. It's you. I don't know you. For some reason, you feel compelled to turn and start talking to me. In your personal opinion, why should I listen to you?
Wow. That's putting me on the spot.
A little bit.
Yeah. Well, I'm English, and the English, we don't like self-promoting. So that question has kind of put me on a self-promotion path. So anyway,
Bit.
whatever. Yeah, a little bit. Well, look, the story is I used to be a broker in the city
Yeah.
of London. And on the outside, I had pretty much everything you would ever want. And on the inside, I had pretty much nothing you would ever want, meaning I was very depressed, had a lot of anxiety, found myself, not living my greatest life, and not really knowing how to fix it, and not really knowing how to create something beautiful. And I thought that was going to be my life forever. I was going to be sitting behind this slab of wood, retiring at 65, if I even got to 65. And then maybe I would have a good life at the end. But it was looking bleak. And I stumbled across the movie The Motorcycle Diaries, which is a romanticized version of Che Guevara traveling around South America, relying on kindness. And I had an epiphany. And to cut a long story short, I quit my job and I started to travel around the world relying on kindness. I hitchhiked from Times Square to the Hollywood sign. I went from London all the way up to Scotland and back to London with £5 in my pocket. I hitchhiked from the Eiffel Tower to Red Square in Moscow. And I basically just shifted my life. It doesn't mean that everything was 100% okay all the time. It wasn't, right? But I ended up in Los Angeles, where I kind of ended up going down the wrong path again for like 7 or 8 years. I mean, LA can sometimes do that to you.
I've heard,
Yeah. And I was one day walking down Hollywood Boulevard, and I stumbled across this homeless chap who had a sign that said, "Kindness is the best medicine." And I had another epiphany. Clearly, I like having epiphanies. So I quit my job again, And this time I bought a vintage yellow motorbike called Kindness One, sort of like Air Force One, but a little
Yeah.
bit yellower. And I
Okay.
drove it from LA all the way around Earth back to LA with no food, no gas, no money, no place to stay. All I had was relying on people just like you, but there
Yeah.
was a twist. And the twist was that unsuspecting Good Samaritans would receive a life-changing gift. So we did that journey. And then I did, and it was fortunate enough for it to get onto Netflix. Then I did
Yeah.
another journey where I went from Alaska to Argentina, doing
Okay.
exactly the same thing, but with a 50-year-old beetle called
Okay.
Kindness 2. Um, and after I kind of finished doing all that, I decided that I was going to write a book about bravery. And that's basically my very short version of who I am.
That's a great version, though. I like this. What was the life changing gift that you were going to deliver to people?
It depended on each different person. So, for example,
Okay.
I was in Pittsburgh one day
Mhm.
and I went up to this chap and I was talking to him and I said, "Can I stay in your house tonight?" Which is what I would do. And he looks at me and he goes, "Look, I'm really sorry, but I'm homeless." Felt
Mm.
some shame. I was about to walk off. And he turns around and says, "But you know what? Hold on. If you want, you can stay with me tonight. I'll feed you, I'll protect you, and I'll give you some clothes." And that's
Mm.
exactly what happened. I stayed on the streets with this chap called Tony,
Yeah.
and he just revolutionized my life. He taught me that kindness is free, and
Yeah.
that the truest wealth is in our hearts, not in our wallets. And me and the crew ended up putting him up in an apartment and sending him back to school because he wanted to be a chef. So these are the kind
Oh,
of things that we did based
yeah.
on the needs of the person.
That's kind of cool. And so the whole production helps out. That's awesome, man. Where did this? I mean, I get that it's like these epiphanies, but they weren't like. Did they just literally randomly come into your head? Was there a conversation that sparked it? Because so this is really not your normal thing, but like I love it, and I'm wondering like how can someone else have their own epiphany similarly?
So look, the epiphany really began many years ago. So I was viciously bullied for many years, and I never really shared my truth with anyone.
Yeah,
Um, and I had this one teacher who would look at me in the eyes every day, and she would say, "I believe in you." And I never forgot that kindness. And it
yeah,
was that kindness, that like witnessing. She she witnessed my pain, and I wanted to witness other people's pain whilst also fixing my own pain.
yeah,
And I'd always been an adventurous kid and an adventurous young man. And when I watched that movie, it was the combination of adventure and goodness and kindness. And something just clicked in my brain where I was like, oh, I can do that too. I don't have to sit behind this slab of wood. I can
yeah.
actually go out and connect to humanity and allow my humanity to shine and allow other people's humanity to shine back onto me. And it was a beautiful awakening.
I like that, man. That's kind of cool because I think we all those moments. I had a guy like that in my college or not college, high school. Was he was a yard duty. He used to drive a golf cart around campus. And I grew up in a crazy situation. I was given away as a kid in foster care, and so I wasn't supposed to do very much. But and in fact, the principal had made statements of like, "I'm not going to amount to much." And I'm this football player guy, but this one guy name was Tim Manley. He sat me down and says, "I can see you playing in the NFL one day." And I'm a high school kid, never had anybody believe in me or say this. So it's like that same kind of kindness. And eventually I played professional football in the NFL. It is not your normal thing. Now, was it because of him? Like, probably not. But that one thought, it does plant the seed, and you never know what those seeds can grow into later on years down the pathway, which is the beautiful thing in life. So is this something, what if somebody is devoid of the kindness? Because you had this to remember, and I think it sounds like that was kind of something you pulled on. What if someone's walking through life going, I don't have this. I haven't met people that have given me kindness. Where do they go and find that, experience it? How do you kickstart that whole process?
I mean, that's a great question. I once read a book called The Drama of a Gifted Child by Alice Miller. And in it, she says that we all need a witness, that we need a witness to our pain, that we need a witness to our joy, that we need a witness to who we are. And if you have that witness, which I did, you stand a chance. And if you don't have that witness, it's very, very difficult to create a magnificent life. So your question was, what about the people that don't have that witness, that don't
Yeah.
have that kindness? I would say seek it out. Find someone who you know or you feel comes from their heart.
Yeah.
Let's say you're an alcoholic. Go to an AA meeting. In those meetings, you will find someone that can see you. Get a therapist. Speak to someone who comes from their heart so that they can witness you. It really, at sometimes as an adult, it's up to us, right? We have to find, if there aren't any people around us, you can go somewhere. You can go to a therapy. Oh, I don't have enough money to go to therapy. I get it. But there are universities out there that give free therapy for training
Yeah.
therapists. I have a friend that does that, who's been doing it for 10 years. So there's always a way. Find someone who can witness you. Find
Yeah.
someone who can see you.
Yeah. It reminds me of the idea of Tony Robbins says, it's not about the resources, resourcefulness, right? It's a different level of going out, because what you're saying to me, I get it. Like, I think that the way that we probably both function is similar. Maybe not to the extent of I'm going to leave my world and go travel on a scooter bike. Like, I'm not doing that. But I think there is this idea that goes, well, I don't have it. The world has it somewhere. Let me go find it. Because I think some people get stuck in the ego or the shame of having to ask for help. And so I'm going to stay back, especially in the social media world nowadays. If everyone has to look great on social media, and God forbid you look bad. But a lot of the solutions I've had in life go from me going, I'm not adequate. I'm not prepared. I don't have an answer. Let me go find someone who does. And you humbly ask for help. And you find that in the ask, people want to help most times. They want to, people want to see someone who can take a step back and go, I need some help, and step in and do that. And it's a huge piece. But I also know there's part of that whole thought there is about bravery, which I love that your book's about that, because it takes a lot of bravery to go and ask, to drop the ego. So do you mind unpacking a little bit of the book itself in terms of what was the catalyst to writing it?
Sure. So for me, bravery is speaking our truth. It is sharing our pain. It is ultimately standing in our power. I'm not saying that going to war isn't brave. I'm not saying that saving a child from a burning building isn't brave. But the true act of bravery as a human being is ultimately to be vulnerable. And I had an experience of that when I was 15 years old. Um, I was being bullied really very badly, and no one really knew. I mean, of course, me and the bullies knew, but no one
Yeah.
really knew, and it was destroying me. But I didn't tell anyone. And then one day it got so bad that I had to speak my truth, and I had to become vulnerable. So I went into my mother's room. I remember this like it was yesterday, and I had a meltdown. And she was obviously very concerned. And I told her what was happening. I told her that I was being bullied and that I couldn't stay in this school anymore, and she needed to help me. Now, in that moment, two things could have happened. One is she could have ignored me. And
Hmm.
two, she could have done something about it. But my act of bravery was to speak my truth. Ultimately, she did something about it, and I moved school. And it kind of
Hmm.
shifted a lot. Didn't change everything, of course, but it shifted a tremendous amount. So bravery ultimately is reconnecting to our humanity. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is when we are vulnerable and we speak truth to ourselves, we connect back to that state of our humanity that we were always meant to be in. Not the state of, like you said earlier, of going on to Instagram and just putting amazing pictures on. Not the
Hmm.
state of telling everyone, oh, everything's okay. Not the state of saying, oh, I've never done anything wrong in my life. Not the
Yeah.
state of living behind a mask. I'm talking about taking that mask off, not the COVID-19 type, and being your true self. And again, this is really important. I'm not suggesting that anyone just speaks truth to anyone that they meet. No.
Yeah. Probably not
Speak your
wise.
truth. Yeah. Speak your truth, whatever that may be, whatever emotional truth is happening, to somebody safe. Do not speak your truth to someone who's not safe. But you start by kind of the way I see it, the analogy is it's like speaking our truth is like a seed. You plant that seed, that first act, for example, when I was 15 years old, and then
Yeah.
you water it. You keep watering it until it becomes this great oak tree. but it doesn't all of a sudden become an oak tree. You don't speak your truth once and everything comes to light. You
Mhm.
speak your truth slowly, slowly, slowly until you become your truth.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's the law of the harvest, right? You have to plant and water and nurture to be able to have a thing grow into something.
Yes.
You did talk to the idea, and I think I think I understand, but I think it's probably good to have an explicit statement about it. But the idea of not speaking your truth to an unsafe person. Because I know in
Yes.
my head, there's people that I go, okay, well, I can tell some people this, but there's some people that I love close to me, but I literally cannot tell them certain things or they will diminish my drive or they'll rob me of my confidence. Not because of anything more than they don't have the idea. It's not their thing. They'll try to protect me to whatever it is. But I also know some people will take advantage of it. They'll use it as some kind of a tool against you. So in your opinion, or maybe your experience, why should we not say our truth to those who are unsafe?
Well, you just explained it beautifully because there are some people, consciously or unconsciously, who want to diminish you.
Hmm.
And if you give them fuel to diminish you, they will. So don't give them any fuel and only share it, whether it's an emotional truth, whether it's a business truth, meaning like, oh, I want to quit my job, whether it's a
Hmm.
relational truth, oh, I want to break up with my partner. You only say it to people that are safe because
I do.
you don't want to
Yeah.
be diminished. You're in a
Yeah.
vulnerable place, right?
Hmm. That makes sense. How do you do it though? Because this is one that I don't know if I've ever had an answer to. I've learned to do this. Maybe it's because I played professional sports, so you just get used to ripping the bandit off and leaning into hard situations. But there have for sure been nights, years and years ago, when my wife and I were like on the brink of divorce, and there were so many things that were just stuck on the tip of my tongue. Couldn't share them. I couldn't say them. I wanted to, but I felt like my lips were glued closed. How does somebody get past that point? Because that starts to create like anxiety. You get stressed out. Like your body's all, like, your body physically has an effect because of this. How does somebody move through that?
So, a wise man once told me to write everything down as if no one is looking. And in the book, I call it the truth diary. Go and buy yourself a journal and write in that journal everything that's going on.
Hmm.
You don't need to show it to anyone. No one is going to read this truth diary. So, for example, if you're having a relational issue and you don't have the courage, which is ultimately taking action, you don't have that courage to have the chat with your partner, first of all, talk about it in your journal. Let it out. Let the truth out. And then it becomes easier once your mind and your heart has processed you letting it out in the truth diary. It's
Hmm.
easier to actually share it in real life. So I
That
would
makes
say
sense.
that I would let it out in a truth way, a truth
Would you
bomb
share
in a
this with?
journal.
Would you share the diary? Or you
No,
just
no, no, no,
okay,
no, no. Do
okay,
not
okay,
share this with anyone. This is
okay.
just for you and your truth diary.
Gotcha.
And then afterwards, you will go to the person who you need to talk to and you need to talk to them. But you've let it out. I've had moments when, with my partner, I've been so angry. I've been so angry at her. What do?
Yeah,
I take out my truth diary. I let out all my anger and all my rage in a very contained, safe
yeah.
place.
Hmm.
And then when I go to speak to her, there's calmness because I've kind of resolved the feelings and we
Gotcha.
resolve it that way.
That makes sense. It's pretty good. It's like the pausing to take a breather. Actually, it's almost like the unpacking of it. I always there's a statement I love, and it says, "When emotions high, intelligence is low." And so when I give the emotion to a person and they're not prepared for, like I can end up messing relationships up, causing headaches, things I can't take back. But if I write it all down, you're saying you can process it a little bit smoother. The emotion can come down a little bit, be a little more logical, we'll call it, and I can enter the conversation and have a more, I guess, more intelligent discussion than I would previously. And I would agree.
Yeah.
I think that happened. I don't know if I've ever written it down. I think the idea of that seems pretty interesting to me. I'm curious to see how that would work. I'm fairly I'm not very capricious as a human though. I don't go up and down too crazy. Like I'm pretty good and even keel, but I have my moments where I can get on on a high. So I think this might be a good one to practice for me. So with all this stuff being said, it's still I want to make sure we're anchoring this back to the book and the idea of bravery. It's called Go Be Brave, and so these are all discussions that I think there's still going to be that jump off the cliff moment, right? I can sit here and say all day that I want to do this and write this, but a moment has to take place. But a lot of people have done nothing brave in their life. A lot of people haven't taken that step. They haven't taken the leap, or they did it, and there's so much of a kickback in a bad way that they have a negative emotional connection to it. How does somebody build up the ability to be more brave or start that process again?
Well, you don't have to quit your job and circumnavigate the world on a yellow motorcycle,
I would
right?
hope
That's
not.
just like a crazy English man that just went a bit nuts. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can do small little steps. And maybe the bravest thing that you have ever done is to buy that truth journal and start writing in it.
Hmm.
Because I promise you, once you do that, once you start writing in the truth diary, things will start happening in your life that will align with who you truly are. And that's not a big thing. That's going to Walmart, paying $9.99 for a journal,
Yeah.
writing the truth diary on it, and just going nuts and writing things. And you feel it in your soul, you feel it in your body, and it's kind of like opens up the gateway to the life you were always meant to lead. But you have to keep doing it, right? You have to keep writing. After writing, you may speak to someone safe and say something.
Hmm.
After you've spoken to them, you may go on social media and say, ooh, guys, I really wanted to become I'm making this up, a baker, and that's
Hmm.
my plan. And
Yeah.
lots of people, I'm sure, if you do it on your own personal page, will say, oh, this is great, good for you. It gives you keep on upping the ante,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Gently, slowly. Or you can rip off the Band-Aid and just go for it. But there's all different types of ways.
All right. That makes sense. I like that. It's pretty good. Now, the ideas we're talking about this, it's kind of like you're mad, you're angry, something's inside of you, and you get it out. But I know you have a thought that I'd like to explore with you. That I was told that it's that anger is a good thing in some aspects. Now, my buddy told me this interesting story years ago, and this may tie nothing into whatever you're talking about. But I hear that the thought of anger and how people do things. This is a story. He goes, a little kid and his dad and him have a discussion. He says, "Hey, son, every time you get mad, because you get mad pretty often, I want you to go in and I want you to put a nail in the fence." So son gets mad, you put a nail in the fence. Next thing you know, the fence is riddled with nails. And he says, "You see the issue?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "So what I want you to do is when you apologize, every time you apologize, I want you to pull the nail back out." So then, a little bit of adding nails and apologizing. After a while, he eventually was able to pull the nails out and there was no nail stuff. The dad goes out and goes, "Hey, I want you to take a look at this fence. So you said you're sorry, right?" He says, "But you see all the holes that were left behind. Yes, you apologize, but that anger, when you did what you did, like it left a hole and it'll always have a little bit of a mark. Can't really tell, but it's just a little bit of a blemish. So we got to make sure when we do things and we're mad, we don't cause all this ruckus and headaches and do things that people get, that just like putting nails into their soul and pulling them out later on." So like I always look at that and go, man, it's a good reason why I don't take my anger out on people if something bothers me. But you say it's a good thing as well, and I'm curious how that may tie in.
Sure. That's a great story. And I'm not suggesting people get angry and harm people by any
Obviously, yeah,
stretch of the imagination.
yeah,
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 do
yeah,
not harm anyone. What I'm suggesting is that you let out the rage safely. So, for example, there was a moment, I'll talk about a personal story. There was a moment where I was angry with my partner, right? Because we're human beings and sometimes we get angry.
yeah,
Instead of having a meltdown, I went into the shower and I just put the shower on like freezing cold
mm,
and I started screaming in the shower, right?
mm,
I let the rage out safely,
yeah,
safely. No one got hurt. It was all a safe way of letting out my rage. I let it out, I let out my anger, and then I went back to her and we resolved it.
mm,
Journaling as well. You go in and you write what you need to write. You write them a letter, but you never send the letter, but you let out the rage. And then you go back and you deal with it.
mhm,
Or if you're feeling angry, you go into nature. You leave your phone and you sit in nature for 45 minutes.
mhm,
Another way that I do it, and this is what I mean by letting rage out so that it doesn't control you. Yeah. So I have a little trick with music. If I'm feeling angry, if I'm feeling upset, I will put a very beautiful song on for, let's say, 45 minutes an hour, and I'll
yeah,
listen to it on repeat. And if I'm at
mm,
like 95% of my capacity, after listening to that song, I'll be at 50% of my capacity. So my rage has found a way to come out into the world healthily. That
yeah,
is what I mean when I say get mad. Get
I,
mad, but don't
yeah,
harm anyone.
yeah. Oh, yeah. So process it properly, and then, yeah, I didn't think that by any means. It was more of like the idea that when you do things like you may shout at somebody or say something disrespectful or rude or because you're angry, right? That's kind of what I meant. Not to harm anybody by any means, but I get what you're saying. It's kind of like process the pain. You have to process a little bit.
Yes.
I think there are people that don't process it, and it may well up, and all of a sudden it boils in their body, and all of a sudden it comes out as one just crazy, tirade, which is not obviously healthy by any means either. So when you talk about anger being healthy, is it healthy to process it? Is it healthy because it can benefit? Because I also realize when I get mad, if I'm being more introspective, at times I'll stop and step back and go, well, why are you mad? What caused it? Could it have been something that you were part of? Like, are you mad at somebody else for something that you didn't handle, right? And then I can think more and actually I can grow from these moments of time.
Look, it's definitely getting mad is about processing it, but I think it's also about anger says that something's not right. Yeah. If you're angry, the chances are you're angry because of something that probably is happening that you would like not to happen.
Yeah.
And that's okay too. If we didn't get angry, I don't think humans would have been around for very long.
Why? That's interesting. I've never heard that before.
Because, some of the greatest people that have lived, Martin Luther King, he
Yeah.
had a pretty good reason to be angry. Nelson
Yeah.
Mandela, he had a pretty good reason to be angry.
Yeah.
Mother Teresa, she saw what was going on in the streets of India. She had a pretty good reason to be angry. And they turned that anger into something positive that shifted societies, that changed people.
It's a good way of looking at it. It's true. You get angry enough at something actually becomes a emotion. That's pretty good. Because you don't think of it that way. You think about the moving towards it, but I think the only reason that you would do it is because you got bothered. Even the person that decides, hey, I'm going to lose some weight, they eventually get mad at themselves because they're, huffing and puffing upstairs, or, they don't like the way they look in the mirror, but you do end up getting that little bit of an anger or frustration. But you're talking about that they channel it properly, which does make complete sense. So how does all this stuff tie into, in your opinion? Because I'm loving the discussion where we're going, but I want to make sure we're not too floaty with it because I love the concrete aspect to give people. But you talk to the idea of bravery, the book's about bravery, the whole journey, the story of what you went through, and you also have this thing of 23 and 3/4 steps. I'm I'm not sure the 3/4. I'm excited to hear about it, but like, how do you approach this for someone that goes, look, I get it, Leon, it's all good, handle it all, but like, give me some concrete stuff to work with. How do I show up and do these things to go be brave?
So Maya Angelou once said that people don't remember what you say to them. People remember how you make them feel. The purpose of the 24 and 3/4 adventures is to make people feel, to give them an experience. They get to go out into their world and experience acts of
Hmm.
bravery. They
Yeah.
actually feel it, right? So concrete steps is obviously, first of all, my definition of bravery, which is speaking your truth.
Yeah.
Secondly, all the things that lead from that. For example, saying yes. How difficult is it sometimes for us to say yes?
Very
And
sometimes.
then, and then saying no. How difficult is it for us sometimes to say no?
Also hard.
It's pretty difficult. Then there's going out into the outdoors. Oh, Leon, how could going out into the outdoors make me brave? Well, remember Maya Angelou? She said people don't remember what you say to them, only how they make you feel. When you go out into nature, you leave your phone in the house, you connect back to your humanity and you feel the person that you are always meant to be. That human being that lives inside all of us, but gets lost in Instagram, gets lost in Twitter, gets
Yeah.
lost in all the madness of the news.
Hmm.
Feeling it, feeling it, feeling it, feeling it, everything. Like sometimes when I give speeches, I do an experiment with people. I tell them to put their hands on their heart. And in this moment, we're listening to some beautiful music. Just pretend we're listening to beautiful music, really powerful, heart-centered music. And I ask them, what do you want the most in life? What do you want the most in life? Feel it. And everyone is like sitting there and I can see and sense they're having this experience of living from their heart. And they get to understand what it is they truly want. And then at the end, we go back to this after I've given the speech, and they get to share what it is that they truly want. That's another thing within the book about
Yeah.
living from the heart. And you can do that simply by holding your hands to your heart, pushing your hands into your heart, putting on a cool song that touches your heart even more, and trying to live and create your own magic from that space. The book is filled with those types of moments,
Yeah.
simple things that each and every one of us can do to reconnect.
I like that. My wife does that before she does her actual race. You'll watch from a distance. She puts her hand over her heart and her belly, and she's like breathing in and holding and centering.
Mm.
And then also Gabby Bernstein's a friend, and she actually has a process she does as well in one of her most recent books also. And so I agree. Like there's sometimes these little simple things that you wouldn't think to do it, but it's actually very powerful. Breath work, meditation, all these things tie in. What do you say to the aspects of needing a good tribe? Because when you took this trip, you were on your own, but then I think it was kind of like you had this crew at some point that kind of helped you. Did you need them? Was it something where you didn't need anybody? Like how I guess how important is it to have a tribe of people that support you as you go through these things?
Well, look, human beings have been around for quite a while. I don't know the exact number of years. And
Around
for,
30,000
for
years, supposedly.
well, there you
I,
go.
I just I
And
just
in
looked it up
those,
recently. It's the only reason I know.
okay, and in those 30,000 years, for 99.9% of them, we were living in communities,
Yeah,
right? We were
yeah,
living in tribes. We were connected to each other. That doesn't mean bad things didn't happen. It just means that on the level of our humanity, we were in tribes. And over the past, I don't know how many years, we've kind of, specifically in the Western world, lost that
yeah,
capacity to have community. And
yeah.
part of the reason why I did what I did, I'm not sure it was conscious or not, was to go out and find a tribe,
Mm,
to go out and connect with people, to go out and share my humanity and have other people's humanity shared with me. So I think the community aspect of it is really, really important. And that's why we all flock to Instagram. We all flock
yeah,
to Facebook. We all flock to all these things because it promises community. And on some level, it delivers. But on many levels, the true act of community or being in a tribe is connection one on one or in person with people, which we've kind of
yeah.
seemed to have lost a little bit.
It's funny you say that because I do talk to my wife about these things. My brain is it's a weird conundrum of just random thoughts. These things come out. So it's telling you, back in the day, you used to like, say there was no light, there's no power in your hut or your teepee. There was a big bonfire, a big community fire. Every single night, we'd all come out, cook food together, we'd eat together, we'd dance, we'd talk every single night. And now the world's built on you go home and you just sit by yourself in your house with your TV and your show. And that you don't even barely, I don't even know people 3 doors down from my house right now. Like it's abnormal, but it's actually the normal part of it. And I go like this. I would always wonder what it would be like to still have that kind of community, have that kind of connection to people that live near you and had that. I don't know. It's kind of a cool idea. But then I also know there's aspects of people that are part of tribes that the tribe doesn't have the same end goal in mind, right? So it's being in the wrong tribe, but there's sometimes fear to leave the tribe. You ever experienced that yourself?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, Look, I think sometimes we've all experienced being in a tribe that we don't want to be in. Maybe we don't have the courage to leave it. Maybe it feels safe in like a perverted way, meaning like it's not safe, but our brains are making it feel like it is safe because
Yeah,
that's what we used to. In the old days, the olden days, if you were in a cave and your tribe kicked you out of the cave, you were finished. You'd get
yeah,
eaten by a lion, you'd get eaten by a tiger. So there's part of us that still has that inside us. So we may be stuck in a tribe that doesn't work and we don't have the courage and the bravery to leave. That's why I think some of the 12-step programs like AA, NA, all these programs work because it's another tribe that generally does good and is positive. So we go
yeah.
from a negative tribe into a positive one.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's a big, big piece of why the growth and everything takes place. I've been in tribes where they're not they're not sometimes bad, but I've always looked at it like this, the statement that says you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. And I go, it's partially true. I think the addition that no one talks about is You're the average of the expectations of the five. Because if I'm around people that are okay, right, but I have goals for more, dreams for more, I want to express myself more. If the expectation of the group is already set and it's below that standard that I want to shoot for, then this group isn't great for me. Doesn't mean they're bad people. I can still love them to death. But then the idea is like, no, but I want to create more for my life. I want to experience more, whatever. I want to do more, right? I have to find a tribe that's like that. What if you noticed? This is a thought that I've looked at with people. There's a lot of people go, I know this tribe's not best for me. I got to be to a better one. I got to, I got to be brave and leave this group. But there's a fear of entering a space with people that are doing better than them and them being less than. You ever notice that?
Absolutely. I mean, some people say that it's envy, for example, right? Like we're envious of people doing better than ourselves, and
Yeah.
it's often frowned upon to be envious. But I don't know a human being that hasn't experienced envy on some level, right?
True.
If you turn around and say to me, oh, "I've never been jealous," or "I've never been envious," I'd be like, "Are you a machine?"
Yeah.
Because you know that's just not doesn't sound right to me. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I guess it would be showing some love and some compassion for yourself, showing some love and compassion for your own human feelings, the negative ones, right? That's
Hmm.
again about being brave. That's again about reminding yourself of your humanity. We're not we're not like you said about Instagram. Everyone posts things about how amazing they look and etc. 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 etc.
Yeah. Mm.
But we know deep down that that's not true. There isn't a single human being that lives today or lived in the past that hasn't kind of felt down or hasn't felt they've done something wrong or hasn't felt envious or hasn't felt something. Why
Yeah.
not just own your darkness as
Mm.
well as owning the magnificence? Great, own the magnificence. But
Yeah.
to truly own the magnificence, I feel like we have to own the darkness. And we all have darkness, all of us. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's just part of life.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a necessary part of it. I think it also gives a good juxtaposition as to why you should be happy in good times because you know how dark it can be. But yeah, we all have to have those things, and we're always proud of them. I think there's things. I mean, for sure, there's things I've done in the past, which we all have. That I'm like, God, I wish I never did that. But then I go, well, if I didn't, I'm not me though. If I'm didn't, I don't have
Yes.
this position to view. I'm maybe not as grateful as I am for what I have, or as appreciative of the situation, or maybe I wouldn't have been able to see what I need to see to be able to avoid something in the future because I've experienced this negative aspect. So I do agree. We do have to embrace the dark because it's the thing that's part of the light in some manner too, man. I like that. So this book, who is this book like? Who is it truly for? The root of the root. When you sat there were writing this, like what kind of soul or heart were you thinking of as you were pouring the words out?
So that's a great question. And the way I answer it never makes my PR team and my manager very happy. But I don't care because I'm just going to answer it in the truth. For
Please.
me, this is for anyone who has felt down, who has felt depressed, who has felt lost, who has felt that there was no hope on all different levels of the spectrum, right? And some people want me to say, oh, it's for 18 to 35, or it's from 29 to 62, or it's from 104 to 138. It's
Mhm.
just for anyone who's human and who
Yeah.
wants to take that pain and transform it into gold. Could be a 12-year-old kid, could be a 104-year-old woman. It could be
Yeah.
anyone in between. If you are human and you feel a sense of lack and you feel a sense of like, there's more, there's more, this book is for you. That's the truth. I'm going to get hate mail from my own manager for saying this, but that's the truth. Men
Yeah.
and women, everyone.
Yeah, I like that though. I know it's they say there's you got to make sure you have a specific demographic, and I go, you know what? I don't think the iPhone does that though, or the Android does. Like it's this one thing that can be used amazingly by so many human beings, and so if I look at that perspective, I go, what's the benefit? What's the collective, we'll call it goal that everybody has? And I think there is a human goal that says I do want to be better. And even if that's not the language, there's definitely a whole people experience they fill with the wrong things. But if you can have something like this that goes out and says, hey, here's something you can use that's going to be better than the drugs or the sleeping around or the crazy you're doing, like use this. Like it becomes a vastly different tool and more beneficial in the world we have now that is, it seems to be ripping apart at the seams sometimes, man. It's kind of scary. What do you hope the book does for people? Like, let's say that the end destination, I pick your book up. I get that they have this, that this is what they're battling, right? People are battling this problem. They're battling this feelings you just mentioned. What do you hope somebody closes the last chapter and goes off and does?
I hope that they go out and live their most beautiful life. And that this book is a small little spark to get them to that place of being magnificent. It's literally that simple. Like the Motorcycle Diaries was my spark.
Mhm.
I'm sure you've had sparks, maybe a book,
Yeah.
maybe a podcast, maybe a documentary that opened something in your soul to be like, I don't want to live like this anymore. And
Yeah.
there is a solution to get out of the way I'm living. That's it.
I like it, man. I like it. Well stated. All right. Two final questions. The first question is, where can I send people to get the book and or more information about you?
So they can find the book on Amazon. It's called Go Be Brave. It comes out on April 25th in the stores. So, Barnes and Nobles.
Mhm.
And they can contact me at the kindness guy on Instagram.
I like
At
it.
the
All right.
kindness guy on Instagram.
At the kindness guy on Instagram. The
No, the
kindness guy.
kindness,
Yes.
kindness, kindness
Kind.
guy.
Yeah. Got it. All right. We're gonna make sure it's on the notes. Everybody can go grab that. The
Okay, okay.
kindness guy on Instagram. And then the last question, you can answer however you want to. What promise did God or the Creator make to the world when they created you?
Wow. I have been asked many, many questions over the past 10 years, and that one has not been one of them. But I would say the promise that he made for me or that I made to him,
That He made to the world when He made you.
that I would share my heart and my soul with as many people as I could and make them realize that they are loved, that they are important, and that they should never, never, never give up, ever.
I like it. It's a good one, man. Because I agree. As a human being, human to human, I agree, man. I got a crazy story, and that's the core of it. It was the ability to never give up, man. Still doing it. That's kind of the fun thing about it. Seriously, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. Those of you guys who are here with us also, still, thank you so very much for spending some time. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here. Go pick up the book. Please go pick the book up if it resonates with you, if the words you heard resonate. And also, if there's someone else in your life who you're hearing this going, "God, this is for this person," do them and us, send you a favor and send this to them. Sometimes your words can't get in, but sometimes Leon's words can get in. And so if you can send this gift to them of maybe a potential amazing future, it could be a life changer, quite literally. Outside of that, as always, make the most of your awe shift moments so you can make shift happen. It's Anthony Trucks and Leon Logothetis signing off. Hey, thank you for tuning into the Awe Shift podcast. I pray that we gave something amazing to your life. And if you found this episode served you in some way, I would love if you could share it with people you know, people you love, as well as your community, because you never know who needs that simple little seed that can grow into something amazing for their life. And the actual training doesn't stop here. If you want your free copy of the show notes sent to you after every episode so you can get the major points consolidated down, simply go to textanthony.com and message the word notes. Till next time, make shift happen.